Welcome. Thanks for tuning in. Well, thanks so much for joining, Eliza. After, we tried a few times, but we made it at last. So it's nice to have you here.
Thank you for the invitation, Anna.
My pleasure. So I always start with a bit of an explanation why you and I are here together, right? So we met, I think maybe 6 months ago, roughly, something like that.
Yes, exactly.
And I think the listeners know that I'm always pretty critical when it comes to CX because for me it's all about making business impact. So a lot of CX professionals, they start talking about I've mapped journeys, I've done a lot of things, but they don't link to business impact. And whenever a person, when I meet them, immediately starts talking about business impact of CX, then I sort of wake up and I think, hey, this might be a relevant story to share with the listeners. So here we are. So maybe you can just share a bit for the listeners, a bit about your background and what are you now doing at Honeywell?
Okay, great. Again, thank you very much for the invitation. And, starting from what you said, CX bond to the business, that's for me fundamental. That's the first, that's the beauty of it. So about myself very briefly, I have spent most of my professional career with automotive business. I've worked for General Motors for nearly 2 decades. Running supply chain operations, which I think also gives me a bit of a different look into CX, which I'm sure we will touch on later. And I have spent additional 4 years within the automotive industry, not within the GM arena, I would say anymore. And then I have moved to Honeywell, which is also a large industrial supplier to large industrial customers. Exactly. So kind of, going from the customer side into the supplier side, it's been a great journey. I'm located in Poland, in south of Poland, and basically responsible for the CX hub for EMEA, for one of the business lines of Honeywell.
Yeah, nice. I think one of the interesting things already from your industry, right, is it's not only B2B, but it's indeed also B2B industry.
Yes.
So can you share a bit about what specific challenges you face that maybe other B2B or other B2C companies are not facing?
I think there is, you're touching on a very important point, Anna, because there is, at least from my experience, from the way I see it, a big difference between B2C and B2B industrial, relationship. First of all, the long-term relationship plays a much bigger role, right? Because if you work for a company like Honeywell, where you have applications that can go into products for many years, you will be working with often the very same customer for many, many years. Very often that will mean you work with the same person for many, many years, right? And that takes the relationship to a completely different level. You need to be able to bond. You need to be able to listen to the person and build that strong relationship so that then you can resolve the issues. When we think about retail or help desk, that's more of a transactional, right? There is a situation you call, there is one fits all nearly solution. I don't know, I want to return my shoes, right? Okay, click, return, done, right? That's not how you work in the industrial setup. So it requires different set of skills, a different mindset, a different also way of working within the company. So industrial suppliers, they need to understand, and that's what I see at Honeywell, and that's how it was as well at GM, that all the company needs to work together to be solving really the customer inquiries, right? Again, it's not transactional. It is CX being part of the business, embedded into it, and trying really to push the business forward for the customers.
And when you started out, what would you say were, let's say, maybe your top 3 challenges that you wanted to fix?
Right, when starting. Right, so there is always, a challenge, Zana, when you are starting a centralized hub, right? The business services sector has that label, in my feeling at least, that it's purely transactional, right? And as
Like
I
the
just
shared
said,
service idea, is that what you mean, right?
exactly, yes, exactly, the shared service idea. And we do have, like, countries that we cover from across the Europe in the hub. So it is a centralized shared model. But there is this label that is only purely transactional, very simple processes. You just go resolve the case in a CRM. It probably is in some of the instances, but definitely not at Honeywell. So my first opportunity when I when I came into that organization was to really bring as well what I have learned from the customer side when working for GM, right? So really changing the team to see that we are not only transactional, we have to be curious how other function processes are
Mm.
working, because they are intertwined, right? We cannot be just closing our box and resolve again a case in a CRM system, right? There is more into it. And I think, there was a lot of work put into that. But I was lucky first to have a wonderful team behind that was willing and open to that change. And as well, the experience, which I could have then shared examples of how do you do that to do it right.
Mm.
And it's been some sweat and tears, but when I look back and I see where we are today, 3 years later, I'm very proud of what we have achieved.
What are you most proud of?
Well, the most proud of I am of the team, of the incredible turnaround that they did and that they feel empowered. And I think this is also one of the very important points that CX team needs to feel empowered to be really a strong voice in the organization because they are the voice of the customer. And
Mm.
everything we do as companies is for the customers. They pay our wages, right? That there is a very famous saying people always repeat, and I agree with it, right? So it's not only the sales teams, which of course is having, the frontline touch with the customer and negotiations, things like that. But then the operational part is also the
You need
voice
to
of the
deliver, right?
customer. Exactly. You need to, you're exactly right. Yes. Selling is one thing, delivering is the other thing. So yeah, I'm the most proud of the turnaround the team did and the empowerment they feel and how they grew and how they really are partners to the business. Today, if somebody would call my business leaders, I am very confident they would say, well, your team understands it, your team gets it, and your teams work to resolve things for the customers.
Now, so if somebody's listening and thinking, "Hey, I think also my team needs to, be more of, let's say, a business partner," what are maybe some, I don't know, 2 or 3 tips? So, what did you do to get there?
Mm-hmm. A great question. And there are very many different things that you can do. And of course, first of all, I keep on saying performance is your best protection, right? And your best marketing campaign. You have to have
Yeah.
performance, right? You have to first deliver and show that you can really do things to gain the trust of the business, right? So you are a service function. We can't forget about that. You have to deliver. But once you do that, and once you have that, the next element is to build partnership. And how do you do that? Well, what I've done here, maybe taking an example, my team is part of the annual sales kickoff meetings. It's a big meeting that we run where all the sellers are coming and basically hear the first hand strategy. You hear the frontline news, right? What is important? What is coming? Where are we focusing, right? What up? And then this is where magic happens because then we are talking like partners. We can then show, okay, we can do this, but maybe we need to work on this to make this one work, right? It's a completely different collaboration. And we have been going into those meetings for the 3 years now in a row. And it has yielded fantastic, fabulous results. Really, it's a full partnership. So know your stakeholders. So first, performance, as I mentioned, right? Without
Yeah.
performance, you are not a partner at the table.
So,
Second,
what did you do to prove that performance? Can you give an example of what you achieved where the other departments were saying, "Wow, if you can do this, let's go."
sure. I mean, first of all, when you manage a large team and the team we have here at Honeywell is relatively large, it's almost 400 people, you need to understand what are your most important KPIs you need to deliver on, right? And then you have to run it to meet those targets, right? Every company is working on based on, or at least, the companies I've worked for are based on KPIs. You have to have metrics, measure them. If you see that you have a gap, dig deep into it, go do your root cause analysis and fix the issue, right? And then
What
when
are
you
your
do
key
that,
metrics? What are your key metrics, Eliza?
so of course, agent satisfaction score and
Okay.
customer satisfaction score, which is a double fold because it enables you not only to be getting a feedback, a survey from the customers on how the resolution went, but as well how was the person managing the resolution perceived by the customer, which is
Mm.
giving you a twofold fold feedback. Our case closure rate, so we are verifying of how quickly we are able to close, meaning resolve the customer inquiry, which is a very important metric. And those are and then of course our in contact or telephony metrics, where we really have to have high results on picking up the customer calls. Although also working in an industrial kind of setup, it's not really a call center where you get thousands of calls, right? It's
Yeah,
rather
yeah.
more
Waiting time is not
on
the key, right? It's more the resolution. I can imagine.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So those are the key KPIs for us,
Okay.
and yeah, and you have to just show that your team is capable of getting there, right? And then when you are having already the performance on the right level, you can still get better, but for that you need that partnership, right? For
Mm.
that you need exactly partnership, because you need to be able to change processes to maybe align with other functions, etc. And this is where again getting sitting by the table and being part of those meetings is very important. And again, we might say, okay, talking to people is important, but sometimes it's just talking, right? I agree. But if you choose your battles, your right battles, and you go to the right meetings, and you have your plan of what you want to achieve, and you have that open hand, and you want to say, guys, I'm here to partner, I really have never seen a rejection. I really have seen good results on the business and the service functions coming together. And then the other
If
thing
you,
that, yeah,
sorry, go
sorry,
ahead.
the other thing that I wanted to mention about how do you build partnership is also um, having my customer service representatives going with the sales teams to customers on site. If you
Okay.
manage large customers, if you manage customers with a long relationship, going to them, sitting with them face to face, putting things on the table, that really does a huge difference to how this relationship is, and how you then approach to resolve problems, right? We tend to have, or I have observed in the industry, that it's the sales teams going only to the customers, right?
Mm.
Because they need to, maintain that relationship to sell. But you mentioned very important, part when you said, but you have to still deliver, right? And
Yeah.
that's exactly it. And then if you have the person from operations joining the salesperson, you speak, as one company. The customer
Mm.
can really see that there are people not only trying to sell things, but also there are people who care how to deliver the things. So those were the two fundamental things for me that I have been implementing in the hub, and they yield really, really great results.
Yeah, I think it's nice, right? Because it's so, companies are so siloed, right? Marketing is not talking to customer service, is not talking to operations. So I think this is a perfect example. And I think also making the bridge, from CX to EX, right? I think we both are also believers that the two are very well connected.
Oh yeah.
And you mentioned when we talked that I think, especially in customer service, I did my PhD in customer service. And if there's ever a place where employee, engagement is a challenge, it's definitely in that context. And you also shared that you made really nice progress there. Can you share a bit, again, some concrete examples? What did you do to achieve that?
Yes, there are several, and first of all, I fully agree. For me, EX is equivalent to CX, right? There is no good CX without EX. Why? Because it's personal. It's the person talking to another person, right? And trying to resolve the issues. So there needs to be a good feeling for the person working for the company, to being able to transmit that as well to customer experience, and if people feel good, they also push more things forward. So, couple of things that I did here, and I also did in the past with my GM team, which was a fabulous team, and I have such a fond memories of those times. Um, First, create an environment when your employees know they are being listened to.
Hmm.
You have to do that. Meaning, if go meet with them, sit down, ask them what the issue is. We call it, for example, at Honeywell, skip levels, right? So you go without the direct manager, you meet with the team, and then kind of
Mm.
brainstorm. Create a culture of, going back to where I started with automotive. Lean manufacturing is embedded into everything you do in
Mm.
terms of management, right? So create again the culture of continuous improvement, of Kaizen, right? I always keep in mind the iceberg effect, right? I don't know, I know only the tip of the problems. My
Yeah,
team
yeah,
knows the 99%, right? So go talk to them, create a space where they can raise issues, and let them see, not let them know, don't make promises, but let them see in action that you have their back, that they can come to you with issues, and then you really drive and help them to solve. And that's how you learn and they learn, right? Because you learn about problems, but you can give them guidance, you can help them, you can connect with your peers, you can use your network, everything, and move things forward. So that's one thing. The second thing I would say is make them understand the purpose of their work. It's again going back to the transactional part, right? Sometimes in those, especially short service models, it's a transaction, you have to close the case, next one, right?
Yeah.
You make them understand the purpose and how big role and pivotal role they play in the business, that changes the game completely. So what I do, to give you a concrete example, for example, for my monthly town hall meetings, I always bring a guest speaker. And it would be a person from a completely different function, from business strategy, from marketing, from operational excellence, so that they understand they are part of a bigger ecosystem, right? And they also understand what is going on in the company. Care for your team, really care for your team, and caring. I don't mean, bring them fruits every day to the office, or, cakes and cookies every day. That is nice to have, but that is not going to make your team happy.
Or
Listen
healthy.
to them, or healthy, yeah, maybe the growth part, but yeah, but basically be close to them, be really close to them, be very open. And, when we talk servant leadership, I think leading by example, and that's my motto since I was leading people. If I expect something of my team, I expect it from myself first,
Mm.
because I believe that this is the only authentic way to lead others. And I am very happy and I feel privileged to be able to lead a fantastic team here. But it really, for me, it starts with me. If I'm expecting my team to go an extra mile, I go an extra mile or two, right? Then I can, in an authentic way, pull them with me.
Yeah, I think it's a nice bridge, right? And leadership is right. I also just recorded a whole series, about human centric leadership, because that's sort of my purpose, right? Making sure that companies treat people well in the end. So if you look at that topic, right, I think I sometimes also say that I think as a leader, if you just look at all the McKinsey, all the all the informational leadership, I think I would, let's say, if I would be in your shoes, I would be like, oh my God, I cannot do anything right. Right? You only get, negative. I will not
Mhm.
use the not so nice word. you know, you don't have a vision. You don't empower. You're too short term focused, right? So what do you say to, let's say, fellow leaders? What are maybe sort of your three, maybe your compass to keep you sane, right? What are the three things where you feel, hey, this is for me personally, how I also reflect and be sure that at least for me, for my values, I'm the leader I want to be.
Right. I think you just mentioned the word that I wanted to start with. Know your values.
Mm,
You have to know your values. You have to know your moral spine, and you need to understand what is that keeps you going, and keeps your North Star. Why? Because first, we are all different, right? We all have different values. But if we are not authentic, then whatever values we just accept because somebody told us they are the right ones, they will not work in the real life. That's at least how I see it. And when some people ask me, who was the person that you looked into having your current leadership style?
mm,
And I answer always, it was not one person. I have been very lucky to have wonderful leaders around me throughout the years.
who
But there is
inspired you?
who inspired me, but they were all very different. I have
Yeah.
also tried not to close myself to one type of character or leader, type of the leader. And then I have realized that I have picked different bits and pieces from all of those people to create my style, which again, because I need to feel it's authentic. It's really
Yeah.
me. So that would be my advice. Of course, you need to stay tuned. You need to continuously educate yourself. You have to stay on top of the game to understand, what is the generational change, right? How our employees are evolving, how our customers are changing. They are not the same what they were 20 years ago. So you need to continuously educate yourself and adapt. But you have to have that moral spine which is your North Star. And then you
Yeah.
can do the tweaks, right, to be agile enough to adapt. But you can't just, say, okay, now the buzzword is being this type of leader. So I just have to be this one because then it's gonna make miracles. No, that's for me the wrong way.
Yeah. And in the one of my other, let's say, um I don't know the word in English. I was going to say in Dutch, but nobody will understand what I will say.
I know only two words in that, so I won't help.
No, so I think one of the key things that I also hope that we can achieve in this world is that people, but I think leaders in general, that they just take time to stand still, right? Everybody's on this crazy treadmill. I think COVID made it even worse, right? Back to back from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Crazy. How do you, for yourself, how do you make sure that you create time, right? To stand still, to reflect, and not just keep running every day?
Well, I am not sure if I will answer as maybe others would expect. How do I find that time? Because I love to run. I unfortunately am that type of person who also was rolling in a very fast-paced environment like automotive is, and it's my thing. So for me, having back-to-back meetings, it's something that I just always had, right? And I love to talk to people and I love to connect with people. And maybe that's the trick, that it's not wearing me out because every call I approach it with, okay, I have a thing to
Energizes
talk.
you.
Right. And it did exactly. And you ask me, what are the things that inspire me? I would say it's one of the things, right? It drives me. And then you have to, of course, figure out how you find time for learning, right? So I do, for example, listen to podcasts, including yours. That's how we met, actually, right? And I do it when I drive home, when I drive to work
Yeah.
and back from work. That's what I listen, and that's how I educate, or I try to keep myself educated. And then when my kids go to bed, I read books, right? So that's how I balance. But when I'm at work, it doesn't stretch me. Okay, sometimes it does, right? It sometimes stretches even the strongest, but it does
Yeah.
not put me down. It
Yeah.
motivates me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the car example is nice, right? So I tend, because now I work, I think, like 90% of the time from home if I'm not traveling to other countries, but
Yes,
just
and you do a
driving,
lot
when I drive to,
recently.
yeah, to Schiphol, for example, right, to the airport, that's for me like 1 hour and 15-minute drive. And because, I mean, you have to pay attention to the road, and I have tend to have some music on, for example. But those are the times that my team knows, right, that they can expect like a gazillion calls along the way because I get a lot of brainwaves, right? Because, I'm just sort of, not consciously reflecting, but because, you're not thinking about it, all those ideas pop up and you just have space for that. I just a very funny side note. So in my personal time, I'm also DJ Zanna in the house. I made some mixes back in the day, and at one
Wow.
time I was so excited about my own mix, like dancing in the car, that I completely missed like the exit that I should have taken. But that's for another story.
You need to share your playlist. I would love to. I would love
Yeah.
to hear that. But you mentioned as well, right, that when you drive, and that actually happens to me. Like actually yesterday, I was driving back from the gym, and after the gym, you also get a lot of
Boost.
adrenaline and good hormones and I was having the time where okay the podcast was somewhere playing in the background but I was reflecting a lot about things that happened throughout the day and I came home and the moment I stopped I already had like three ideas being shared with myself first because I don't want to bother the team but sharing the team
Yeah,
with the team in the
exactly.
morning
I
it was
I
already
have a
9 p.m.
WhatsApp
so
to myself.
exactly. Oh, that's one of, but you know what? That's one of the things that I learned from one of the leaders I looked up to. That you may have great ideas and they are just right now, it's 9 p.m. and you feel like you need to share them with your team. But does it really make a difference if you send it at 9 p.m. or if you send it at
Yeah,
8 a.m.? It's like
exactly.
doing this little tiny thing to respect their time and as well
Yeah,
give them the space to rest, right?
yeah.
And of course, I would be saying not the truth if I would say I
We
never
never do that.
do still sense things, right? Because sometimes it's just automatical. But I try to pay attention to that, and that's one of the small elements as well of the EX, right? We talked about earlier.
Yeah. And I think especially as a leader, right? Because then people feel more stressed. So for me, also I think the most used, because my brain is sort of 24/7, and also in the weekend, I just like to flex across the week. But
Yeah.
I don't also want to impose that on others. So I think my most frequently used function in email is schedule, right? So I always schedule
Yes.
the mails the next day.
Yes, and you can go out at the time you define, right? And yes, and I have started using that as well because I'm working as well with people from other regions, like predominantly
Ah, yeah,
the US because we are an American conglomerate. And then, for example, there is 4th of July, right, or Thanksgiving,
yeah,
right? And you're working in Europe, but and you
yeah,
don't want to forget to send it, but then you schedule it, right? And then it sends
yeah.
out after the holiday. It's a sign of respect, right?
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, exactly. Just because you have maybe, crazy hours doesn't mean that they,
Exactly.
right?
You
Everybody
have
has the
just
same
left the
rhythm.
gift and you are happy and energized and you want to send it out, but yeah, but that doesn't have to be the same on the other side of the boat.
So just as a sort of, to slowly but surely wrap up, so
Yeah.
most of the listeners will be doing something around CX transformation, right? So you already mentioned a few tips both on CX and EX. Is there any, so I always end by the question for sure if we forgot anything, so we'll end with that one. But
Okay.
before that, is there any sort of golden tip where you feel, hey, if you're in CX and you're struggling maybe to convince the rest of the organization, is there a
Mhm.
golden tip that you didn't mention yet?
Don't feel that you are just a service department. Know your place at the
Value.
table, right? Right. And it's not about being pushy, here I am and you have to listen to me. No, show the value that you bring to the business. And a good organization, and I'm lucky to be in a very good one, will recognize that immediately because if an organization is a good organization, it will reflect, it will say, okay, we have to have them at the table as well, them meaning CX, because who are we without them, right? It's not a complete picture. So definitely that. And we haven't touched on AI, Zana. How is that even possible that we have done almost 20 minutes and we don't talk about AI? Everybody talk AI, right?
I think it's very healthy that we're not talking about AI. So is that a bridge maybe to something that we forgot to mention? You feel that there's something around AI that you want to share with the listeners?
I would like to share about AI, but maybe from a different angle. When I see now the business talking about AI, very often people are talking about, jobs will be replaced and AI will do this and AI will do that. I see a big opportunity with AI, especially in the CX area. And why is that? Because when you work with a customer, right, you work with a person, the element, for example, sentiment analysis, which
Mm-hmm.
AI offers,
Yeah, yeah,
is such a helpful tool for CX. Why?
yeah,
Because today you need to be really you really need to be strong to sometimes take the angry customer, frustrated customer, right? And you receive it you as a person.
yeah.
The
Mm.
sentiment analysis AI, it can show you the problem, right? And everything in this interaction is about solving the problem of the person, not the personal offense that might be,
Mm.
in between that. Of course, when you work with industrial customers, that is something that happens much, much, much less than if you work in the retail business. So maybe that advice is even more important for the B2C and other
Yeah,
retail help desk peers in the business. Sentiment analysis is your key to give the customer what they want while protecting your employees from that mental, from that emotional burnout. And if you
yeah,
look
yeah,
into some statistics and data, CX is a stressful job, right? But that element to me is the one that I'm looking with the biggest hopes. And I see really good results already from getting the job done, getting the problem solved without having this emotional kind of, element in it.
yeah, yeah.
Still like human touch, right? Because you don't have, AI typing something for you and it just copy paste, right? That's not what we are talking about.
Mm.
But giving you the sense of the customer inquiry, what is the main topic that the customer is looking for to be solved, and then helping you to kind of answer the need.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I saw the same to one of the companies I work with, Zain in the Middle East, a large telco. Also, there. let's say Bahrain office, they also had the CRM with the AI fully integrated, and especially for this, I think it was one of the best applications of AI that
Mhm.
I've seen as well. Yeah, so I think that's a really valuable development coming for sure. Yeah.
It is. And we are at Honeywell looking at AI as, supporting our employees.
Yeah,
Really,
yeah,
using those features which really help us to make our work more efficient, be it Copilot or any other tools that really keep us a company that is human at its center, and
yeah.
it's the humans having the human relationship or human to human relationship with our customers, because again we are not a transactional CX, but at the same time taking the things away from, I love to take notes, or I love to take notes, and I always had a habit of sending meeting minutes after every meeting, because it kind of gives me what we discussed, what we agreed. But it was time, right? First I was writing it with my hand. I'm still a pen and paper person, but then you had to retype it, right now I just plug in the Copilot, which, by the way, one of my wonderful employees, Ada, showed me, and I learned so much from her. And it's also important that you can learn from your employees.
Mhm.
She showed me some tips and tricks. I can't imagine working differently right now. Yes,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
so don't be afraid of AI, but look for those things which are really going to be a great add-on to your business.
yeah. I think as well, right? I think AI is going to make sure that we, let's say the time that's not really human value, right? We can
Mhm.
remove that, so we have more time to spend on the valuable human aspect of building relations,
Perfectly,
etc.
perfectly put, Sana.
Yeah,
Exactly. That's all about it. Yes, and I hope that we can all stick to that direction, right? Because this is where it makes all the sense, right?
yeah, exactly. Well, dear Eliza,
Well,
anything we forgot, or was the AI your hey? That's one thing that we forgot
I'll probably remember after we close the recording.
in the car.
Yeah, exactly, in the car, and then I will fiercely text you. No, I think we covered everything, and it was a very pleasure, a big pleasure to have that conversation with
Likewise.
you. Um, if somebody wants to reach out to me, that's on LinkedIn. I know that's how you close as well your conversations. I can as well share some books or podcast recommendations, if someone is interested of what content do I look into. I think
Yeah.
other than that, we covered pretty much everything.
Well, then I think I can also say obrigada, right?
Exactly. Nada. Obrigada também.
Thanks so much for joining. And yeah, I hope for the listeners, you had another nice, valuable conversation to listen to.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dana, and all the best. Hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you. Ciao.
Thank you. Bye.